Hello everyone, welcome to Chieftains with Daniel Karinen, where I interview world leaders from diverse industries. Today we have Yar Malik in the podcast, a serial entrepreneur, relentless innovator. You've been in fintech at Yar Tech, Culture Tech, and crypto. You're also the founder and CEO of Call Support AI. You're also the founder of the NeoD Foundation. And we are right now in WeWork in Berlin, which is very fitting because I would like to briefly tell people who don't know you how we met. And then we dive right deep into the interview in a way. So a couple of years ago when I finished studying at the university, I switched to working in WeWork because I was dreaming about becoming an entrepreneur and I felt I needed to shift from being in the university to actually being in an environment where other founders were. And you were one of the first people I met there. And that dude worked relentlessly from morning till night. And this is how we bonded because pretty much we lived together in the office for a couple of years and became friends like this. And he's still working like he did back there. So everybody give us a warm welcome for Yar. I'm honored to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be part of this.
Yeah, so this is going to be a little bit rusty because this is a new podcast. It's like I shut down the psychology podcast and I was very happy with all the guests that I had. And this one is a new one. So this format of this podcast is where I'm currently traveling around the world to meet leaders such as yourself in order to investigate their story, like how did they become the person that they are today, what are their views on leadership and their entrepreneurial career, and also where we're focusing on the future and leaving messages for the next generation behind. So let's dive in. How are you today?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you for coming all the way from Hamburg to Berlin for this. And in WeWork, so that's like the best place to be.
Yeah, for me it was very special coming here because I'm moving to Berlin soon, and you're actually one of the reasons. I love where people didn't listen to this, but you enchanted me earlier with one of the sentences, bro, we're gonna work from 9 a.m. to 2 o'clock in the morning, and you were so excited, like, this fucking psycho is the only person who's that much passionate about love.
I was super excited because I was like, hey, if you join in, because I know how much you love working, how much I love working. The biggest problem that I have in this office is like 9 a.m. you come to work, most of the people leave till 8, leave till 7. And I know if you're gonna join in, you're gonna be like, you're obsessed, and that's what I like. So I'm like, hey, today on Twitter, I read that XAI, the company from Elon Musk, all of them are working from 9 a.m. till 2 a.m. And I'm like, maybe that's the standard. Maybe like Elon Musk sets the standard. And that's the thing. It's gonna be, I'm excited about it. 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. That's what the next year is gonna be.
That would be my very first question. So I think that the interviews that I'm gonna conduct with all leaders are gonna be three tactic pretty much, where we're gonna go over the person, the actual individual. We're gonna do a psychogram in a way. We're gonna do about the presence, like what are they doing right now, tactic skills and teachers that they discovered, and about the future, where we're gonna preserve some wisdom for the next generation. You're not only the hardest worker I know, but you're also the most enthusiastic person I know. Like for me, my emotional home is much more like rage. I'm always like competitive in a way, and going forward. But you're like fluffy while doing it in a way. And I was wondering, like, what was the first sign in your childhood that you're blessed with maybe a little bit more energy than the rest of us?
Yeah. Wow. All the way back. I would say one of the things that you mentioned, competitiveness. I was also like all my life really competitive. I wanted to become a football player. That was the dream. And with my friends, I was just playing football every day, 6 to 7 hours. And I think that's why I feel like sports is such a good thing. That is what puts you in all of this competition. And all of the people who are very successful entrepreneurs, they were also very competitive when they were younger. So that's the part that I feel like sports is so important as a young kid, or anything where there's competition. Competition is something, when you want to win, you know, the desire to win, that's the most powerful thing. And that's something that I got from playing football. Wanted to become a professional football, unfortunately did not work out. So but now you play other games, and being an entrepreneur, I think it's like you have the most amount of impact and the most amount of glory, and we chase as a person, I want to chase glory too, but I also want to have the highest amount of impact. And as an entrepreneur, you get that. And that's the fascinating part. But if you had to go younger days, I have to say football was the biggest thing. It's like how to become the best football player, and that competitiveness is something that...
Yeah, I think that's something we share in common. Where like my dream was to become a basketball player. My big brother was a professional basketball player and tried to emulate him, and I think it teaches you so much about doing something for many years without getting anything in return is a good precursor to what you need as an entrepreneur when you're starting. But for people who don't know where you grew up, like tell us a little bit about the setting where your story took place in a way. Where you're from, and tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Yeah. So from childhood, I'm from Pakistan, ethnically Pakistani. Grew up also in Pakistan and did most of my younger years studying in Pakistan. I also got the chance to live in South Africa doing this because my father and we were traveling. But yeah, Pakistan was the initial years always in Pakistan, and it's a completely different environment than Germany. And I always blame because I was in Pakistan. That's why I could not become a football player. If I was in Germany from a young age, I think I could have. Looking at the competition here that I see, I think I could have become a football player, a professional one for Bundesliga. But maybe maybe that's the optimist in me speaking. But yeah, I grew up in Pakistan. This was also one of the reasons why I decided to make a switch to Germany, because it was like, hey, maybe I could still become a professional football player at the age of 17. Let's become a soccer player. And that is what got me into it a lot.
When I was 17, I got kicked out from school for the second time in a row, and I couldn't participate in normal educational system anymore, and that presented me with a couple of problems. One of them, I didn't know what I should educate myself into, and so I went home and I had this gap year where I investigated the biographies of the greatest people of all time, or the most prominent people of all time, and they all had this will to win in a way. They had a belief system that was installed within them, or that ensued from the circumstances, almost like a will to power in a way. Tell us about the origins of your intrinsic nature to want to dominate. Dominate is a very hard word, but it's like in a sports center, it's this there's just some people, they are just born different, and they don't have this off switch that other people have. They're just born this way. Where do you feel that comes from for you? And do you think it's born this way, or it's like, do you have a particular moment where you feel that's why I noticed I got this drive?
Yeah, I think it's a very hard. That's a very good question. Where does it actually originate from? Because I've also never introspected myself that much that, hey, where did I get this from? I would say a big part of this is being born with it, but another part is also like circumstances and also the feeling of glory. I just don't know. I think that feeling of glory that you get, like those some few minutes or seconds, they are like you just chase that dopamine. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe maybe you never get it anywhere, and you're like, oh, I saw how good it can be. How about I try to get that feeling again?
Yeah.
And it also like at the end of the day, I also feel the bigger you think, the easier life is. Like the bigger, the most challenging things that you try to do. That's it. What is life? Just trying to have a lot of challenges and overcome them. That has to be the best way to live, if I have to say. Because the hardest things you do, if you're successful, you get so happy because you were successful in those things. And at the end of the day, I also believe on the deathbed, when you're sitting, you're thinking, hey, these are the biggest problems that I had, and somehow I figured and I solved them. And I think that's the powerful thing.
One of the stories I like to tell is the story of Alexander the Great. I think that he's the closest thing we ever had to like a mythical character, to fucking conquer the world by his mid-20s. But I think the most interesting character in the story is his mother. And his mother was this, I'm not sure that they had a good relationship, but she from an early age told him, like, you're the offspring of Zeus. There's like divine blood in you, like you are ruled to conquer. So he had this, there's a famous quote for him where he mourned the fact that he conquered so quickly because he felt like, I was born too early because there are no more worlds to conquer in a way.
Wow.
So when we go over the educators and circumstances that you had, where would you assume did your belief in yourself come from? Because that's something I feel is very hard later on to reverse engineer. Where did you feel, if you would have to make a guess, where it's like your sense of self-imposed destiny, where did this arise from?
Yeah, I have to say that's so good. I have to say it's like so I have a brother. I used to have a brother, my older brother Shahriar, and a big part came from him. Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. But he was my elder brother, a proper mentor, and he was also very competitive. He had this thing where he wanted to win. He had a lot of competitiveness in him. In me, growing up, I was not the best student, if I'm being honest. Like, I was always like, I think I had too much ADHD. I was moving too much that I could not focus on the classes, and that was always a problem. But then, in 7th grade, till 7th grade, I was not a good student. But after that, my brother put it in me, in my mind, that hey, you can go to Oxford University if you work harder, and if you get straight A, you can go into Oxford University. And with Oxford, you can become a football player. And that was always the plan. Everything was connected to this big goal that I had to become a football player. And he was really smart in actually navigating and telling me, hey, if you do this, you're going to accomplish this big goal that you want. And because he was really ambitious, so it was such an excellent example. And this is the thing, you have a goal, you have such a lot of desire, and how do you channel it? This is something that I also want to do for my kids when I get kids. Like, find what their biggest goal is, what they really want to intrinsically do, and then tell them these are the steps, and these steps anyways are going to lead to a lot of success. And he told me, hey man, if you get straight A's, you're going to get into Oxford. You get into Oxford, you can become a football player. So that's it. Go for the Oxford. And that was the thing. That's how I started working really hard. And since 7th grade, I became like a straight A grade student. So most of my grades, everything was straight A's. Before that, it was completely opposite. I was like the biggest troublemaker in the class. I was like, if there are 30 kids, I'm like number. Okay, in Pakistan you also get beaten up, so it's not like Germany. I think for a lot of people listening, it might be a foreign concept. But I have to say, I was getting beaten up the second most out of all of the 100 people who were in like 7th grade, 6th grade, 5th grade. Like, I was getting beaten up the most. Second most. There was another guy, another friend of mine, I'm still friends with him. He used to get beaten up the most. I was always number 2. So proper troublemaker, and then channeled all of this energy, shifted it, and started focusing, really focusing. I became the guy, so I was always the kid. Every teacher said, hey, stay away from this kid because he's like not a good person to be around. And then I switched to this, where in the 8th grade, the teacher, he comes and he tells me, man, you are such a good student. The only problem that you have is you have really bad friends. and the problem was 2 of them were my cousins actually. And he's like, man, these two people that you have, like this whole group that you have really bad friends. You have to leave this group. You should start sitting with the other guys. And they didn't know that I was actually that was my crowd. I was running that crowd.
It's very interesting because before we talk about education, I want to talk about your brother. There's a story I heard from Peter Thiel a couple of days ago where he was encouraged to go to Stanford, and he went, and he realized this isn't not really for me. And then he left after 8 months to found the company pretty much. And he said that the people watched him like he just escaped Alcatraz and said like, I didn't even know it's possible to leave in here in a way. It's like one of the things I'm fascinated by is beliefs and how certain people are key holders that open up new realities for us. How do you think, if you could talk to your brother, what do you feel he opened you up to in regards to the trajectory of your life?
Man, he was my brother Shahryar, really special guy. They're the best guys that you're ever gonna find. Also quite strict, because he was the eldest. I have 4 brothers, all of my lovely brothers. The oldest one, Shahryar, he was really strict with his things, but he was really competitive, and he knew how to unlock you. Like, if he sees something in you, he knew how to unlock you. And he had this in him that he really inspired me to really work hard. I think no other person could have actually inspired me and think, okay, I should go for straight A grades, I should really focus and become a better student, I should learn. But he just had this innate talent. And I feel like he was also sent to us by God just to unlock these things. Because he was 25 years with us. At the age of 25, unfortunately he passed away in Germany. And that was one of the toughest moments for me and for my family. So all of that happened, but at the end of the day, despite all of these problems that you have, you still think wow, maybe it's you're just happy that you could get 25 years with him, you could get this enough time, and that was the most powerful thing. He could really inspire. He was a de facto leader, Like the biggest thing that I saw in our whole family, I felt like, some people are just de facto leaders.
Yeah.
You lose them, nobody can take that place. Like never.
Yeah.
It's like they're gone. Nobody has the level of talent to actually take it. And he had like so much natural talent. That's what I feel. I always feel with leaders, like the ones who are really good, who are born leaders, it's so hard to replace them. A lot of people think they can replace them and they're replaceable, but when they disappear, or they're not at all replaceable, they've got something special, which is also very hard to explain. But they're really good people's person. They understand what is it that actually opens you up. What is it actually that you could like inspire people to do something, and he has that skill. And he's the one, man, like proper disciplined person, one of the best examples that you could have. And could really unlock me. He's the one I'd say, like, he really put me on the trajectory.
We just founded the Chieftain Executive University, and we're trying to mimic the education of the greats of the past. And one of the commodities I found them is what you just described. I call it Morphean mentor. I love the idea from Matrix, the movie, where there's Neo and he's stuck in his own world pretty much, and there's this guy who believes he's the chosen one, and there's nothing Neo could do to discourage or dismantle the belief that Morpheus had that he was the chosen one, and he became that person in a way. I love that. That's so beautiful for me, for my idea. You have somebody in that. Like if you would share like a standard operating procedure or how to unlock a person, something you maybe learned from your brother, how would you design that? How do you think you can get that awakening almost out of somebody? If that question makes sense or something.
No, it makes sense. I feel like you can never force people towards a goal. I think you can never make people change goals. This is also one thing that I learned. Now we have like a big team, and this is what I learned. You can't even force people to actually change their goals. I think what you could do is just understand what their goals are and then try to align it. Like what is it that you want to do, and then try to take it back and then get them like how do we achieve that goal? And then together you both win. That's the only way that I can think of. You cannot force people to a dream or to go or to any goal. They need to have their own dream, own goal. Once they have it, then you just tell them like, hey, if you achieve this step, then this brings you closer to your innate goal.
So in your case with your brother, he knew you were dreaming of becoming a soccer player, and he like showed you this path. Like if you go to Oxford, that would do that, and you're like, oh really?
I was like, wow, that was the only path. He showed me the path to what I want to do. That's it. He just showed me the path. And that's it. He doesn't have to force me, he doesn't have to push me. It's so hard to push or force somebody into anything. And it's so hard to convince somebody about any goal, but he could figure out what my goal is. He knew I'm going to do everything for this goal, and that's what got me.
You said violence was also part of your early chapter of your life. I feel that great leaders don't grow out of comfort. Very hardly that I met like a great man who's the son of a great man. I feel there's always like this hardship that seems to be a crucial element of it. How did your environment make you tough and prepared you for the journey of leadership growing up in a way?
I think it's when you grow up in Pakistan, it's always like in schools you get like the teachers.
For people in Germany, what was it like growing up in Pakistan? If you would paint us a picture.
It's much better than I always say Pakistan has the worst marketing in human history. Like every time I think about it, like I write Pakistan on Google or anywhere, it's like, okay, that's like the worst marketing ever. I think the whole country does not understand marketing. I always say, if one thing Pakistan can never do is marketing, like not even a single person who could do marketing. So I'd say for German people, I'd say it's 100 times better than what their opinion is about Pakistan, but it's still a tough environment in this sense that like when you're a kid, when you're in a school, there is violence. You would get beaten up by professors, by teachers. It's like really a very old traditional system. Obviously now everything has changed. I think everybody having an iPhone, having a camera in their phone has completely eliminated it because no professor wants to be seen beating up a kid, and that thing goes on Facebook. I think that's the biggest thing. I think people never talk about it, but literally the invention of phones and cameras has actually prevented so many people from just getting beaten up because no professor wants their video beating up a little kid on Facebook.
modern generations to technology now grow up differently because there's less witnesses in a way. So it's like, what was it like to be educated in Pakistan?
Yeah, so I have to say, to a certain degree, I come from a very privileged part of Pakistan. I'd say upper middle class. So I could go to good universities or good school, not universities, I did university in Germany, good schools which are specifically focused on English education. For example, I went to St. Mary's, which is, and Roots, which is like really English focused schools, and you could get like education which is on par with the British system. So there was a lot of privilege, like upper middle class, I'd say. I feel like this is one thing that also inspires me so much, like looking at like every person in Pakistan, every person. I feel like we have the most amount of young people that are out there. All of them can speak English. All of them are very good at computer science, very good at copywriting, a lot of different skills. But nobody has these channels to actually monetize it. And that's one of those things where I'm always thinking, hey, how do you unlock it? Because such a huge young population, feels like less than like 70-80% of the population is below the age of 30, and all of them.
It's a young country.
It's a very young country, and people speak English. Even if people can't speak English, to a degree they understand it because the British has ruled us for a long time, and also the official language of Pakistan is English and Urdu. So there's always like it is there. Like people, there's a lot of influence of the language there, and people can understand it. And people are willing to work hard. Like I see it now. I have a lot of team members also from Pakistan, and I see the amount of hunger that they have. You just need to show them the incentive. They can work like very hard. And this is something that we miss now in Germany. I feel like even if you show the incentive, people really want to have like the work-life balance. And you can't build a huge company with work-life balance. You can never do it. Like you have to be really obsessed.
When I grew up in Germany, it was very interesting. It's like the German education system has become quite left. And like one of the things, how I got introduced to university, I never forget, there was in front of the University of Hamburg, there's a big sign where it says like, it measured in the digital name the number of debt that there was in the country, and below it they had another one where it was measuring the wealth of the richest 5% of Hamburg in a way. And there was a long text about how unequal distribution is the cause of this in a way. So it was very interesting, and I never thought about this, but it's like the ethos of the university that I was is that it's not just that it was like being ultra successful is bad. The amount of raising of capital is bad, because like if you break down Marxism, it's the idea that property is theft. And it was so interesting. It's like, one of the ways where you really can motivate a generation to not work hard is to take the incentive away of what happens as a consequence of working hard. And I was wondering, you in Pakistan, what was the educational philosophy that was instilled within you in a way?
Yeah.
Because for me, it felt like it was almost like the educational dream got corrupted to a degree where it's like, why do you want to become rich or influential if you then become to a group where it's not attractive to belong to that group? Does that make sense?
Exactly. This is exactly. And you mentioned Karl Marx. Like I could talk about Karl Marx for another 500 years, man. This is so interesting. And exactly, like that's the thing. The Marxism and communism. You remove the incentive. You tell people, hey, it's really bad if they win. So they start hating all of the people who are actually winning. You kill all the competition, and then people have no desire to achieve anything. They all become socialists. They all become. None of them want to work harder. They're just like, they even consider working harder bad. Like now we live in Germany. If you're working hard, people say in Berlin. So Berlin is super leftist. We have to say this. Still, Germany has a huge economy, third, fourth biggest economy in the world. But here, if you're even working hard, I don't even want to tell a lot of people that I'm working hard, that I'm going to work, because people are like, why do you want to work hard? Why do you want to do this? You can't even tell that in Germany, because it's so much Marxism, so much communism in this city, that if you like it's absolutely insane. In Pakistan, if you go and tell people, hey, I'm working hard, you're going to be appreciated. It's like US. If you work hard, you're appreciated, because there's a strong, they say, hey, if you're rich, you are creating a lot of value. So that's how people think in these countries. But unfortunately in Germany, it has become like, hey, it's a zero-sum game. That if you're rich, you've stolen it from some other people.
Yeah, but that's pretty much the idea. It's like money. It's that's why I wanted to investigate how you grew up, because how do you protect an individual from ever becoming influential? Is by installing with them certain beliefs that will castrate them of accumulating the particular skills that will make them a formidable force. And what I've noticed in Germany, or maybe even the Western world, is that there's an inversion of values, where it's like a certain virtues like diligence, or working hard, or being faithful, or being has been replaced by almost the entire opposite. We used to, for instance, admire individuals who are very loyal to their partner. Now everybody has fucking open relationships. It's like Berlin is the head capital of the world. It's like there's.
And I would literally love to understand how this is. It's like, how do you destroy a civilization? I think these concepts only come in when you really want a civilization exactly dead, because this is going to destroy the whole civilization. All of this, even removing the incentive to actually build better technology which solves all our modern problems. If you remove that, who's going to make these problems? Who's going to solve these problems?
Yeah.
None of them. And when I look at Germany and I look at these civilizations, it also feels like, where exactly is it coming from? Who is actually instilling all of these ideas? Because none of them lead to success of the society or even to an individual. So I'm like, where is this coming from?
Yeah, and I would like to talk about that, like about your early chapters too, because I feel.
Like in Pakistan, when you were growing up, you really, like, it's more survival. Right now we live, like, you're not gonna survive if you're not working hard. There's no social system. It's okay. We've got other system where you almost never starve because there's so much free food in the country. So you've got this kind of system. But in Pakistan, it's competitive. You know that you have to work hard. If you're not working hard, then it's like then you're gonna lose. Then you're gonna lose out. There's no system in place which is going to prevent you, which is going to save you, which is going to protect you. So you have to work hard. There's no other option.
Parents, biggest lessons you learn from both of them.
Yeah, I mean, my parents, I could like write a book about them, but
what would the title be of the book?
That would be the hardest thing ever. But one thing I have to say about my dad, like what I learned from him. Consistency. This man, he's always like, do one thing, but do it forever. I see every person, like all of his.
Write that down. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's like he's always telling me that I always keep on changing my businesses, and that's one thing I always look at him, and I'm like, why is he so much more successful than any of the other people in society, or his friends? And I realize that he does one thing. We're just gonna stay in our lane forever. He does not understand the word FOMO. He's never had FOMO, fear of missing out. for the older audience here, you but just one thing consistently, just keep on doing. And he was a workaholic. I'm not gonna lie. My dad is like a proper workaholic. I've never, like, 7 days a week. He can't have a free day.
Yeah.
He always, and also really fast. Whatever has to be done right now and really fast. This is urgency and consistency. I think that's the best combination that you could have.
I feel we have something in common there. One of the most representative moments of my father is, my father had a heart attack on Tuesday. On Friday, he called me and said, Daniel, you need to come to the hospital. I'm thinking, like, shit, he needs to make a swallow. I said, why, Dad? And you need to sign the paper so I can go to work. I have an appointment on Saturday, so I can't miss that. So I had to go there and sign the papers so that they would not sue him, and so that he would take the risk in our family and then he would leave. And there's just certain men, I feel, where they're just made of a different material, you know. And I just love the idea that, like, work is something almost like holy in a way, where it's like those are our ways to express ourselves as men in a way. How do you feel like your father installed a sense of diligence within you in a way? Like, what is a story that maybe comes to your mind where you think, like, watching that changing? Because I think it's not only like what our parents tell us, but it's more like what we saw them do that shapes who we become in a way.
Exactly. Yeah, I think one of those things, one of those stories that I love with my dad is like, it's one thing, always 7 days a week he worked on the same business, never left the lane. He consistently worked, was never even 1 minute late. I've never seen this man even 1 minute late anywhere. Discipline, consistency, and speed. Everything has to be done really fast. Obviously, this was also hard for me and my siblings because hey, it has to be done, and he's hard. She's like, it has to be done. So it's obviously a lot of stress.
Yeah.
But then you also recognize that, okay, wow, that's how you want the CEO to be. You want somebody who's putting the pressure. It's important. Maybe it's confrontational. It's not the most pleasant thing, but this is exactly what you need to get things done, and that is the power that he has. But one of those things, I think my dad is also one of those people who understands people really well. I've never talked to him about this, like again in my life, but it was like, at one point, it's like, so once I got like an A and a B. This was my era where I wanted straight A's. So I got like A and a B, which was for me suicidal. I was like, okay, not suicidal, never, I'd never do that, but it was like one of the worst things that could ever happen. And he comes to me and he says, hey, you know, he's like, he appreciates me. He's like, man, this is like the best thing that you've ever done. This is such an incredible result, everything. Like half an hour, I'm like, oh, okay. I kind of got the feeling, okay, maybe it's not that bad, you know? It's like AB is not that bad. Okay, it's not double A, but it's AB, it's not that bad. And then, in the end, my dad says, you know, we are not even the people who can ever get a double A or straight A's. And I listened to that, and whoa. I don't know if he was playing some 4D chess at the back of his brain. Then I don't know. I've never talked to him about this. Maybe I'll talk to him this time. I'm like, what's up with that, Dad? What's up with that? That was a katana piercing through my heart, nah?
Dude, I can hear that moment in a way. It's like but sometimes I feel like dads do stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he understood me, and that got me so mad. He said, well, how come we are not the people who could get like straight A's? And that got me like, whoof.
Yeah.
That, like, I never forget that. That moment I never forgot, you know. It's like, hey, maybe we are not the people. I'm like, whoa, that is intense.
Yeah, that's the next thing I want to talk with you about. It's like a nexus event. It's like that story, what you just shared remind me of a story. Like when I got kicked out from my church school, I had like a teacher. Hope she rots in hell. Fucking hate that bitch. Her name was Mrs. Buck. And
I've got a list of people teachers who I would unfortunately also want, like, they did so much harm.
I know, man. I got a kill list already of people like where it's like I sent them special letters to at certain times. But she said to me when she kicked me out, she said, Daniel, I think education is just not for you. You should do something with your hands. Your head is not good of yours. And I was so mad because she, in that moment she was right and was not allowed to go to any school anymore. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have my university is because it was something that was taken away from me and something that they told me, this is not for you. And I was like, oh, really? Watch me.
Watch me.
And I think that's sometimes the best thing that can happen to you. What is like a nexus moment for you where like something challenging or painful happened that woke you up? Like Spider-Man when like he lost Uncle Ben or something in your first 1 or 2 chapters of your life where you're like, okay.
Exactly.
It woke you up.
Exactly. And just coming back to that topic before I address this, so many teachers, man. I feel like so many teachers, they're just there. I do not know. They don't even like their jobs, and they really kill a lot of dreams. They kill a lot of dreams. I do not know why they do it. If you don't, I think teaching is only one of those professions. If you really love people, and if you love kids, you should do it. You should never do it as a job. That's one thing that I've really recognized, that you just cannot do it.
I think that's actually a really new concept. It's like one of the things we're trying to incorporate in CXU is I'm not really happy with the idea of teacher as a profession. Because when I studied the elites, they had specialists coming in where it's like that person's a world leading expert for negotiation and he talks about negotiation.
Yeah.
The idea of having a job where you teach different subjects and you're pretty much...
Was it Alexander the Great who had Socrates as like his teacher? Was it?
I think so, actually. In a
yeah.
way, yeah. No wonder in a way. But it's like there was even like the idea of like the school of Athens, where there was like Aristotle and all these kind of things, like the Platonic school in a way. It's like it's the idea that we are for the first 20 years are accompanied by professional teachers is very weird because these people are. I don't know. It's like I understand that it's like not everybody can be homeschooled, but it's certainly not a way to do that, and it's like that's a good sign. It's like that the person you shouldn't listen to is if they haven't become successful in their own regard.
And there are exactly, and maybe
What do they know about success?
Yeah, and maybe it's maybe
But
that's
it's
not
fine,
their
it's
job. Maybe they're just there to babysit. Maybe education is just babysitting. Like we have
Yeah,
babysitters.
but maybe we create a generation of babies if we surround them with babysitters for the next 10 years of their life. You
That's
know?
true. That's
Like,
true.
and I've had a friend. It was very interesting where that his girlfriend is beautiful was always very important to him. But one time he hit the jackpot and he got like a 10 out of 10 world class Victoria's Secrets model, and he was threatened by her beauty. And then she started a professional acting career, and he was not supportive of it because he was threatened that she would leave if she would get introduced to
More.
and seeing that was so interesting to me because he wasn't aware of it. In a way, it's like sometimes I feel like when you are a teacher, you also have like jealousy, and like if there's somebody more talented than you who's more smarter than you by the age they're 13, I think you also want to keep them in check to some degree, you know.
Oh.
You know, so I think like these human motivations have to be monitored as well. Like,
Wow.
anyway, I'm
That's a
digesting.
deep one. That's a deep one.
Yeah, it's like
That's a
to
deep
surround
one.
yourself with people who are not threatened by your success
Right.
is not a bad guideline for who to pick in your environment. I feel in a way. It's like and also checking in with yourself. It's like,
Yeah.
how do I react if somebody is doing better than me? Anyway,
Exactly.
manhood. When you think of I think that's something we lost in our world. Back in the days, like for instance, the story from my father I really like is when he was in the army, one of the initiation rituals he had was they got a knife and were sent to a fucking forest for a week and said like, go survive.
Wow.
Really, it's like if you're not, too bad. You know, it's like and we don't have that anymore. We graduated from Abitur in Germany, and then suddenly we are a man. But it's like we are lacking this, and I feel that's something that's wrong with our society. When you think of a couple of moments where you become a man, how do you think that happened for you?
Yeah, like you would say more in terms of like how did I become masculine or
An adult,
an adult?
I feel. And more an adult where it's like my childhood days were over when that happened. You know, sometimes this can be. I don't know. How did that happen for you?
Well, man, for me, it's proper. It's coming all the way from Pakistan to Germany without speaking a single word of German. I come from Pakistan all the way to Germany, and I land somewhere in Frankfurt, and I was supposed to go to Bremen.
Yeah.
That's where my university is. So Frankfurt and Bremen, they're like north and south, like super far away. It's like an 8 hour train.
Frankfurt.
Yeah, I land there. Nobody at that point in Germany was not that multicultural as
Fucking
we.
awful city too.
Oh, right now it became awful. At that point, I was like, man, I'm loving this city. I like this city. Nobody speaks English, and I'm standing there, and I'm like, okay, how do I get to Bremen? Like, what is the procedure? And I'm coming from Pakistan. I take a train. I go to this ticket picker where you get your ticket. I go there. I put Bremen from Frankfurt. And I look at that, and it costs 120 euros. And I'm coming from Pakistan, I'm converting that money, and I'm thinking, man, this is, we're gonna eat a lot of ramen meal going forward in the future. This is 120. Like, that's a lot of money. The thing is, that was like 2011, so I didn't even know that how far these cities are. I thought they're like just very close by, so that's why I got the ticket to Frankfurt. But they're actually 7 hours apart, so that made sense why it costed so much. And I'm like, okay, I tried to find the cheapest ticket, couldn't find it. 120 bucks, I put them in, I got the ticket, and then I get into the train, I wait for the train, I get into the train, and I don't find a place to sit. I'm like, what is this? Like, where's my seat? Like, I paid like 120 bucks, and there's no place to sit. And then I go walk around, and I see a fancy location. I'm like, wow, this looks fancy. Maybe I'm supposed to sit here because I paid 120 bucks.
I think this says a lot about your character, by the way. Yeah, like, this looks good. It has my name on it.
I go in there, and that's first class. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what's up here. I'm just gonna go and sit here. So I sit in the first class, and then this ticket checker comes in. And he's like, bro, like, what's up? This is first class. I'm like, what do you mean this is first class? They're like, you can't get it. I'm like, these are free places. He's like, no, you have to go at the back of the train, like the second class. And I'm like, man, I passed through all of them. I pay $120, and there is not even a seat reserved for me. And I asked him this in my broken, in my English, but he was replying back in his broken English. But he was like, hey, because in Germany, every rule has to be followed. So I had to pick everything up. And I went back, and then I'm standing there for the next 6 hours, and I'm thinking to myself, I paid $120. I come all the way from Pakistan. Like, I come all the way from Pakistan. I'm here in Frankfurt. I'm going all the way to Bremen. I have to stand all this ride. I've got like 60 kilos of like bags with me, and I'm like, why did I do this? Why did I move to this country? Like, my life in Pakistan was perfect. Why did I even make this transition? And it's moments like these, man. These are the ones who get you. Like you're like, oh wow, now you have to grow up. Now you have to sort everything out. Like I'm 17, protected in Pakistan. You come here, don't speak a single word. They don't let you sit on a chair in a train after you pay them everything. After you sell your left arm and and go in there. So that was, I think this whole transition.
It's a beautiful thing, and it's like my father's a little bit from a different time, and I think a lot about him lately. It's 3 years ago I had this big dream and traveled all around the world. I had this idea of building this big company for psychological immortality. And it didn't really work on the first 3 tries, and when I returned, I was kind of depressed and felt ashamed. But my father took me aside and he gave me one of those cigars and celebrated and said, "You survived behind enemy lines for 2 years. I am proud of you. You've passed this trial and conquest." And I realized nobody tells people anymore that like when you survive on the other side of the world, or even like outside of your town, in the strange, that this is the maturing rituals we used to have in a way. You know, it's like you're here, you're in this fucking shit train. You don't know how anything works. They speak different languages in a way, but you survived. What do you feel out of some other rituals that we've lost down the line in regards to you? That created leaders in the past, or even in Pakistan that we in Germany don't have anymore, or in the Western world.
Like some rituals which I feel like if I have to say, I feel a lot about Germany, and like Pakistan has to learn so much from Germany. Anyways, like I have so much admiration for this country, the discipline, the structures in these countries, and I would say a lot of rituals Pakistan could learn from Germany, from the other side. But when it comes to masculine, you mean more like rituals which are...
Doesn't necessarily have to be masculine. It's more like one of the things the reason why I started this podcast is because there was a leadership problem in the world in a way.
And in Germany is like completely right now the biggest problem that I see. Nobody has any relationship with their parents. Most of the people that you're going to meet, none of them have any relationship with their parents, and that's something that's not the same in Pakistan. In Pakistan, you live in the same house. You're living in a big house. Your parents, they take care of you when you're younger. When they grow older, you have such a strong relationship with them, and that's how you live. And that level of love and affection that exists. Like my grandfather, I used to shave him.
Oh really?
Like yeah, I used to shave him, and that right now when I think about it, that's like the best memory that I have with him. And this is something that people do not realize. They lose this. That makes me so proud and so happy. You know, when I think about...
You know what we in Germany do these days? It's not everywhere. I don't want to put everything in a way, but it's like I'm so blessed that I feel that I'm coming. My culture was. I almost have this weird dinosaur as a father and a beautiful mother where I have good relations with them. There's this trend where we outsource responsibility to the authorities. We give our parents to elderly homes and pay for that. And it's like, maybe you're losing a divine ritual, or like something that is sacred. And it's something where I'm thinking, why do we have this loss of culture? And maybe it's because we are treating others like they're not useful anymore, and forget that they are the memories of our society, and it's a passing of age, you know, like they're the scepter, and I feel like that's something. What is a fond memory or lesson that you learned from your grandfather? Or what is it?
Oh man, my grandfather, he's so a lot of people do not know. When they think about world wars, they never think that world war happened on the other side as well. Like my father was a British Royal Army. So he's like, he's nobody talks about this, but he was like a lot of people from the subcontinent region. They were part of because the Britishers ruled the whole subcontinent region. So he was in military. He was a sepoy for Britishers, and they were going out and they were fighting against the Japanese in Malaysia, in Myanmar, all of these countries. And I remember, so my grandfather, he was in one of these battalions, and man, he really was scared he really feared all his life the Japanese. He was like, man, these Japanese, they are insane. Because they're like...
He fought them in the Second World War.
Yeah, in Second World War.
They are, I think, like, if there's a top 3 people of the most fanatical people of our time, and we have the National Socialists in Germany, maybe the radical Chinese communists, but I think number 1 is the Japanese. There's so many stories where there's like random Japanese soldiers who kept fighting for 30 years and you couldn't tell them because you would show them newspaper, the war's over, and they don't know you were propaganda, they shot them then in a way. It's like next level belief that they had.
Yeah, but man, this is even not part of recorded history. Like nobody even thinks, okay, World War, there was a huge part which was happening in these regions, Myanmar, Malaysia, all of this, because the Britishers were also fighting the Axis, the Japanese.
Yeah.
And my grandfather, he's like, they're going on a war, they're going forward, and about the Japanese, it was famous that they would kill you and they would eat you. So
they would eat you.
Nobody talks about it. I even went back and researched it further. The word Japan, like in war, rules are very different. But they were like, oh, they would kill you and they would eat you, because these guys were so focused. They would go. They're like, okay, nothing. They can never return back. So they are just going. If they're gonna kill you, they need food. They're gonna eat you, and that was the thing. That's why they were really, really fearful of the Japanese. And my grandfather is going there. He's my grandfather. So what happened is he was part of a battalion, and my grandfather got sick. He got TB at that point, and that was a disease you die from. So 100%.
Tuberculosis, right?
Yeah. So you die from it at that age. So that's why all of his whole battalion, they left him at the back because they're like, he's gonna die anyways. There's no chance that he's gonna survive. So the whole battalion went forward, and my grandfather is just somewhere in Myanmar or some part of Malaysia. He's just lying there. He's like, he's gonna die. And then they're marching against the Japanese, all his battalion. And then there's one guy who just comes in out of nowhere, and he tells them, hey, I'm gonna give you something which is not allowed, but it might solve you or it might kill you. So I'm just gonna give you a syringe, and it's either gonna kill you or it's gonna fix you. But I don't take any responsibility. But because I see you in so much pain, like I feel I have to come and tell you this.
Yeah.
Like you have to know. And my grandfather was like, bro, whatever you bring, I'm putting that straight, whatever that thing is. he's lying there in some forest, and he's like, and the whole battalion is going out there fighting the Japanese. He's lying there, he's like, bro, I'm most probably dying here, and Japanese are coming and eating me, man.
So in front of man-eating Japanese, and like you have this pill that maybe kills you also, you're like, this sounds like the better option.
And he was in so much pain. He's like, okay, man, I'm just taking this. He's like, just put me, man. Whatever happens, just put me there.
Yeah.
And that guy gives my grandfather syringe, and out of nowhere, that fixes him. That thing just fixes him. Like, I do not know what happens. Like, he just gets fixed. And the thing is...
That was before you had children, right?
Yeah, that was before you had
Isn't
children.
that crazy how thin the line was between us existing
yeah.
or not, man?
Yeah.
Because it's like 50-50, you're not there. It's
I
like,
would not be there, man.
Yeah,
That syringe hitting, I was not there. There was no chance that I was there. Like, gone. Such a slight chance. And then, because he was there for such a long time, he goes forward,
yeah,
and they realize that his whole battalion is dead already. They've all been killed.
Oh, really?
And they're gone.
So his tuberculosis
Actually ended up saving him. That is the thing that ended up actually saving him. And that was the biggest lesson. Like when you have tuberculosis, you're like, hey, why do I have it? Why me? Why God? But the thing is, maybe that's the thing which is protecting you, which is saving you in all of this.
Do you think we've lost an appreciation for life itself? Because it's like one of the things, like, people don't notice. I think 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I had a big challenge. I had a big fight with my co-founder, and if you remember, you counseled me and we work. And you said something that was quite interesting to me. You said, Daniel, when I'm making a big decision, I'm visualizing my ancestors and figure out like, oh, one moment, is this still fine? We want to turn on the lights again?
Yeah, let's turn on the light.
Let's have a quick commercial break.
Let's do a quick commercial break.
Love commercial break. We don't have sponsors. I need to have a better catchphrase. Okay, small break.
Small break.
Okay. So, welcome back.
Let's go.
Took a little break. It's late at night here in WeWork.
Actually, not that late. It's just 5 o'clock. But in Berlin now, it feels really.
It is 5 o'clock. Right?
Just 5 o'clock.
I was so long in Asia where it was like, I feel like it's in the middle of the night because the days are getting so short here.
So short, yeah. So
we were just talking about what a miracle it is that we are here and how many of our ancestors lived. And it was like, in your case, even like there was like a 50-50 chance that your grandfather died by having the wrong pill, but he somehow managed. And one of the stories I like about us is a couple of years ago I had a problem with my co-founder. One of my companies wasn't doing so well, and you gave me a good advice in regards that. You said, like, Daniel, when I'm in crisis, I pretend that all my ancestors are in a line in front of me and I consult them in regards to moving forward. How did you came up with this idea of connecting yourself to your ancestry? Because I feel that it's very unique, and it's like that's such a core essence of what we're trying to do with the company, is to enable intergenerational conversations in a way. How do you feel you managed to preserve your bond to the past?
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of the reasons why we have problems with Germany right now. It's like we are having memory problems and we keep making the same mistakes over and over again. And I think one of the ways we can forget that is by listening a little bit more to the people who were there before us.
There before us, exactly. It's the biggest thing is because all the institutions are weaponized. You go to school, it's weaponized. You go to the government, it's weaponized. Every institution that exists out there, they have their own dogmas. They want to convince you on certain things which might be super harmful for you.
Yeah.
So because every institution is weaponized, media is entirely weaponized. Every app, every mobile app that you use is weaponized. Everybody is trying to brainwash you into getting the outcome that they want. That's why I always feel like all of them have different incentive. If they have all different incentive, who can you trust? No one. And the only people that you could potentially trust are your ancestors. Just asking, what advice would your ancestors give you? Like the past 100 ancestors that you had, because all of them made the proper decisions, and that's why you exist. And at the end of the day, reproduction is the most important thing. So right now when people say, hey, I don't want to have kids, and I'm like, in Germany you see it a lot, I'm like, why? And then they're going to come up with 500 reasons, and they're just parroting everything that they see on social media or what right now are the trends. But I'm like, hey, if you ask your ancestors, they're the ones who love you unconditionally, what advice would they give you? And let's just take the past 100 ancestors. Let's not just take your parents, because it's like these are older problems. Older problems require older solutions. And these modern problems, for modern things, you could say, okay, our ancestors did not even have this problem, so okay. But most of our problems are right now old problems. And how did our ancestors deal with it? What advice would they give? And that's what I always think. That's always like, okay, if I have to make a decision, what would they all want me right now to do?
I think right now, like I completely agree with you, and it's so interesting. If a belief system that governs you prevents you from procrastinating, like from living on into the future, it might be a disempowering belief. And I think like we have like so many women right now, for instance, who've fallen out with the idea of having children to begin with. The world, it would be irresponsible to leave our children to the world. I would rather focus on my career. I would rather it's not fun to have children. I'm like, and I always feel like
the most narcissistic people that you see in society, we are at the peak narcissism ever. Like, people love themselves, they're obsessed with their lives, and they are the ones who pretend to be, oh, I don't want to bring my kids in this world. But all of these people, like the most narcissistic people with the best lives ever, that's what you hear from them. and they are grateful. They are grateful. I'm like, hey, do you love me existing? All of them are grateful that they exist, but they're like, but they're so selfish and so narcissistic that they do not want to have kids, and then they want to put it on, hey, moral, hey, moral. They want to tell you, hey, because of moral issues, they don't want to do it. But it's actually extreme level of narcissism. You don't want to take responsibility. You don't want to sacrifice even a single bit, and you want to get everything. That's where it is.
Yeah, and it's back in the days we thought about like your brother and the idea of a Morphean mentor, somebody who never gives up on you in a way. And I feel like there's so many people who've lost the virtue of faith. You give up so easy on your entire species, eh?
Yeah.
Weird, interesting.
Yeah, how could you do it? That's like the easiest decision ever to make. Your 1,000 ancestors, 100, ask them, they're always, what decision are they telling you? Make that decision.
Yeah.
Pass on the baton when it is given to you. Just pass it on. That's your only job. And you just watched a few Instagram reels and TikTok reels, and you decided that, hey, I'm just gonna cut the line. I'm just not gonna take the baton. That's the craziest thing that I've ever seen.
What do you think is a? Oh no, I'm gonna keep that question for later. You share with us a little bit how your initiation was to adulthood, how you grew up, and also some people who helped you to form the mindset that you have. A big part of what defines is also your entrepreneurship, your creator and leader, CEO and founder. And I think there's like being a founder is quite the unique thing these days in a way. It takes almost like a crazy person to start something in a way.
I think I would position it. I think it's because being an entrepreneur has become easy, which is excellent. I really love it. And I feel like everybody right now is either an entrepreneur or a entrepreneur. Like there's a desire. I think, but it takes a crazy person to stay in it longer than 2-3 years. I think that's the level. But if somebody's in there, if somebody's in there 2-3 years, they've gotten all the hits, they've gotten all the punches, and you're like, hey dude, like you bankrupted 2 companies, then 2 companies you shut down. What are you doing here? You don't have any money. How are you still coming up? I think that's the most inspiring thing, because I feel like everybody is an entrepreneur or entrepreneur. I would say it's like if you look at like 100 people, at least 90% of the people are entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs. They want the independence. They see the positive that comes with it. And that's why somebody was telling me, if you're building a product, never build it for entrepreneurs. Build it for entrepreneurs, because that market is 100 times bigger. And that's something that I was like, wow, that's so smart.
Where did your entrepreneurial journey start, and what were moments where you realized this is a real business situation? Because for me, it was always, you were one of the first people I met who successfully raised a 7-digit amount and played in a higher echelon than I played in a way. And it was always interesting because when I interview somebody, I first want to figure out, like, should I listen to a person? Has that person been farther into the unknown than I am? And I think in your case, it definitely fits in. What was your welcome to the game moment for you as an entrepreneur?
Well, yeah, man, this is as clear as it gets. I graduated from university. The first company that I joined, this is the luckiest thing that ever happened to me. The first company that I joined, it is Creditech. 2 guys who are 27 years old, 28 years old, and they've built a business which has a net worth of more than 500 million, almost hitting closer to $1 billion. They've issued, and that was absolutely insane for me. And these guys were the most confident people that you're ever gonna meet. And I'm like, man, these guys are 3-4 years older than me. I see them every day. We were all in the same office, so it's like a big open offices, that concept. I see them every day. And these guys have $700-800 million business. Like, how do you do that? Like, where does it come from? Like, how do you get that level of ambition? And that completely changed my perspective. All my friends who were in that company, all of us have startups. You can never go back from there. Like, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because from my university, I went to a university where we had like some of the smartest people in computer science that you're ever gonna find. The best of the best. All of them ended up joining Google, Microsoft, Dropbox, Twitter, all of these big companies. So that was it. That was the route. You go out there, you join one of these companies, and you spend the rest of your life there. And these guys were so smart. Like maths Olympiad winners that I had in my computer science class. And all of them ended up becoming like working at Google. All of them are still at Google, like Microsoft, all of these big companies, Coinbase, all of these big companies. And the funny thing is, like the luckiest thing that happened to me is like joining Creditech. You see these guys who have like such huge businesses, you can just never go back. Like your whole, how you think about the world entirely changes. For you, then you're like, oh, it's normal.
What do you think is the belief that formed for you afterwards?
Man, that young people can actually build such huge businesses. Like, how is that possible? So I have to say, most of the people who are entrepreneurs, they watch like movies like Social Network, which is the story of Mark Zuckerberg while he was building Facebook, and they're like, wow, this is so inspiring. And you watch it, and then you're like, oh, this is inspiring. But it's still so far away because hey, this guy went to Harvard, Facebook. That's such a unique story. It's only when you start seeing it in front of you and you look at these people and you're like, hey, these are very normal people.
Yeah.
Like they're very normal people, but they have something special, obviously, that they take the risk, they have the risk appetite, and they stay in this space. And when you enter, that changes everything. And most of the people who left their business, who left their company, they went on and they started their own businesses. And that just entirely changes. And even right now, you know, once you get in this space, I've got friends with public companies which are $800 million net worth. I have friends who have like even like private companies which are $1 billion. Like friends who I would say I knew them when they had like nothing. Like you see, like they had nothing. They had nothing at all. And in front of me, they got all of it. And you know, wow, like there is nothing, like you have to play the game. They have got something special, but it's not, it's maybe they're like 10% better or 20% better than the normal people, or they're like maybe 50% better than the normal people. But the outcome that they get is like 1,000,000 times bigger than what a normal person is gonna get. And this whole difference, asymmetry that exists, this only exists in entrepreneurship. And that's why you can never go back. I could never go and work at Microsoft. I could never go work for Google. It's just entirely different. It's like the mental model of your life has changed. And once you enter that space, this is also a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is obviously that you're around some of the most ambitious people who are building huge businesses, and that's admirable. The bad part is you can just never have peace. You lost your peace because everyone is so successful. Like all the people that you were hanging out with, all of the people who you had envisioned, all of them end up successful. That's the best thing. All of them end up with like multi-million, multi-billion-dollar outcomes, and then you were like, okay, or they've raised like a 50 million VC round from something like Peter Thiel, and you hear that and you're like, okay, that's that changes your mental model. You can never just never go back.
Yeah.
And it just keeps on increasing. It just never stops. You get in the game.
It's why I started this podcast. I started for two reasons. One of the reasons is to collect psychograms of successful people and investigate how they got there, and hopefully like infect other people with the consciousness that drove them to the success, and also to like listen what they are like in a way. But I feel the idea that people will be what they see is very powerful. It's like you can't unlearn certain things. It's very interesting. And what do you feel they had in common, like the ultra successful people, in regards to beliefs or habits, or what do you feel like if you had to pinpoint it?
Yeah, it has to be the most. I have to say, in my class, the smartest people, if I have to say 100, if there are 100 people, the top 20 to 30% of the people, all of them ended up at Microsoft, Google, Coinbase, Twitter, Dropbox. All of them, the smartest people, all of them. Like they were so brilliant. You were like, how do you, like, what level of IQ do you have? All of them ended up there in all of these big companies. But now I can tell you 10 years down the line, 7, 8, these guys are also very successful. But on the other side, there are people who are like, man, they were not the smartest, but they are the ones who have the most amount of determination. Like going always for the bigger and bigger thing, not like daring for the bigger things. Like they just want more. Some people just have more appetite, you know, and they look at this and they're like, yeah, it's possible, I could just do it. And they always thought big, even though they were not the smartest. They never had everything perfect. They never had it. Maybe that's the thing. They had to fight for everything, and then they come out, they know they don't have the highest IQ, or they're not the smartest out there, but they have really high ambition, and they're willing to take a lot of hits. That's why I think all of these people, like all the successful people that I know, they had like companies which went bankrupt, which got shut down, and they are right now like they have huge amount of businesses. They've like really big businesses, and that's one thing that you could say. But I also say people who play this game long enough of entrepreneurship, they win. It's like if you start like 20 businesses, 2 of them are successful, and the 2 which are successful are asymmetrically successful. They are like so much successful that it just completely, everything else doesn't even matter. They just don't give up, and that's the thing. And that's also one of those lessons that I always take it with me. Just never leave the game. You cannot leave games. It's also one of those things in crypto, in Bitcoin. I was investing in crypto 2016, 2017. I've seen ups and down, ups and down. Every time, I'm known among the people as a crypto guy, like, like I get, every time there's a Bitcoin pump, I always have like a group of people who message me to ask me what to buy. And I'm always thinking, like, just play the game, even if it goes down. And the same people also ask me how much money do I have when it goes really crashing down. You just have to keep on playing the game. You just never have to leave the game. You just always need to look at the biggest asymmetrical opportunity that exists out there and invest. And for me, I went for crypto because that's the huge asymmetrical opportunity that existed for me. I invested, I even took credit. I have so much risk appetite. I took credit from I hope Deutsche Bank never finds out. I took credit from Deutsche Bank for 4% interest rate, and I put it all in Bitcoin. Because I was like, hey, there is no, even if I win big. If I lose, it's not a problem. I just have to pay these guys $300 for the next 10 years. Oh, no problem. I can take this bet. Like I can take this bet. But if it really works out, okay, it's multi-millions that I could do. And this is the thing, always looking at the asymmetrical, having that insane amount of risk appetite. And I sold some of my crypto, and the only reason I sold my crypto is to invest in something which is even going to be bigger than that, and that is my business. Because I realized when I made when Bitcoin was around like 40K almost, I sold some of it because I knew Bitcoin is going to go 100K. I know it's going to go really big. I believe so strongly in it. I was like, I know this is going to go really huge. But I was like, it's not gonna now for Bitcoin to 10x, from 40K to 10x, 400K, it's gonna take a very long time. And I do not know when it's gonna happen or how it's gonna happen. I knew it's gonna go 100, 150, 200K, it would go. Even I would right now bet like very high chance that it's a risk worth taking. But the problem is, it's still not a 10xer, and I'm looking for the next 10xer, 100xer. And for me, my 100xer is my business. The amount of energy that I put in, it goes 100x. The amount of money I put in my business, the engineers that I hire, 100x outcome. And that's why that was the only reason that I sold some of my crypto. Otherwise, I would never sell. I love asymmetry. I'm big for asymmetry. I want asymmetry. Show me something where there is like asymmetrical opportunity. Let's put money there. That's like the risk is not that big. I never feel there's any risk.
Big difference between what you're being taught at school, I feel, in a way. It's like one of the things that we're trying to do right now is mimic the education of visionaries such as yourself and share this with the world. How do you feel people can grab onto the idea of picking ultra high leverage opportunities on how to invest their time in? Because I think that's something that keeps me going when I was able to work 7 years without any money. Because I know, like, if this hits, I'm a fucking legend. It's like gonna change the world. It's gonna change the world. But I think like meeting people like you help me understand. It's like it takes a long time, and even like a good VC, like they have a lot of misses before they get something. How do you feel somebody can develop this mindset of having the faith along the way to trust that it can happen for them in regards to picking high asynchronic leverage opportunities to invest their energy, time, and money?
I think all of this information is out there. I could also really list it out. That's why I'm also starting my YouTube. I'm going to go very hard on my YouTube. Just to say, I want to mention one person, Nawal Ravikant. He changed the law of perspective that I have in my life. I think he's one of those people that, like, I'd like to talk to him. He's one of those people, next to Elon Musk, if I have to say. And he mentioned something which was so incredible. He's like, in my 20s, right now, the people who I thought are going to be insanely successful, now in my 40s, I can tell you, all of them are insanely successful. Like, you could bet In your 20s, okay, this guy, you know what path he's heading to, he's going to be successful. And now I'm in my 40s, I can tell you, all of those people are insanely successful. And that's because 40 is like 20-year timeline. Entrepreneurs and people who work hard, they fail. They fail on a 4-year timeline, they fail on a 6-year timeline, they fail on an 8-year timeline. But on a 20-year timeline, none of them are failing. None of them are failing. Because in 20-year timeline, they're going to build like 50 businesses. And they're not, and they need one win to really make it big. And the internet businesses is the best thing. So right now, if we have to look at what are the biggest opportunities, first of all, 100% it's starting your own business. You can build something inside Pakistan, inside China, and you can sell it to the whole world. This was never accessible to any of our ancestors. This opportunity never existed. Throughout human history, we had no opportunity because we were living under kings, and if the king saw that you were getting so much rich, he's going to take all your wealth. This is one of the very few times, the past 100, 150 years, that we even have an opportunity to play this game. Like this opportunity people are taking for granted. This opportunity does not exist. It's going to disappear also. It's not going to stay forever. But there's such a huge opportunity in entrepreneurship. Get a product once and sell it anywhere in the world. That is where you build wealth. Secondly, content. Content is king. I want to go even harder on content. My plan is for next year to really take over. Even end of this year, really take over. Daily have multiple channels, multiple videos, because I feel like with content, you can make I had a TikTok video where it said like, people who watched it, like, it got like 1 million views. It got 1 million views, and it said that the watch time was multiple years.
Yeah, crazy.
And I was literally thinking, what? I never thought it. I made a video which took me 20 minutes, and the watch time of that is multiple years.
Yeah.
What?
And when did you check that? It's also one of the things I'm finding so interesting, Aras, when we talk about the future, is I see of even this right now as the wisdom mass that we are creating together that is going to continue to help people to show them particular tactics, tales, teachers, or tools that even in 10 years from now, we don't know like who's going to discover this, for instance. So it's like the idea of like evergreen content I find very interesting in a way, you know, and there's really something to that. But I don't want to skip your entrepreneurial journey in its entirety. Tell us about the proudest moment of you as a founder.
Proudest moment as a founder, man. With one of my products, I think I'd call it one of the biggest wins. We built a product. We got Microsoft, Google, Apple, Amazon as customer, and very few people in this world can say that they could take money out of these businesses. Like all 4 of them. Like right now, if you have to sell any product to them, it's absolutely insane. It's one of the hardest things. There are long sales cycles, but if you nail the timing, if you nail it, you win. And that's what we did. With one product, within 2 months, we got these big companies to be our customers. And that was absolutely insane. That was like, I think it's very hard to even replicate something like this. If you ask me to replicate something like this, I could never even pinpoint to you how someone else would replicate that. It's like a moment in time. You can't replicate this. This was proper great moment in life.
Why do you think it worked?
Best timing ever. When the timing comes, you gotta hit it hard. If the timing is there, you gotta hit it hard. If you get the time, because in entrepreneurship, one thing I've seen, most of the time things do not work. But sometimes when they start working, or when the timing is perfect, you just have to go and die. You have to take everything, and you have to go and you have to win, no matter whatever.
For those I find it so interesting. I had a conversation once with the chief revenue officer at a popular company, and I complained to him about the slow business growth of the university at the time, and he said, "How many people are you reaching out to?" And he said, I told him like 6 calls for the month, and I was proud. I was like, "Good, I'm saying 6." Probably. I had like 22 calls yesterday. You know, it's like the idea that there's certain standards and certain efforts from these people in a way. When you say hit it hard, what does that mean for you from a behavior perspective?
Behavior perspective that you just, I would say 9 a.m. to 2 a.m.
Bro, we're gonna hit it.
Yeah, that's it. Then when things are working, you have to go 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. That's the thing. You have to work from 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. That's the recipe. And also, like, look at this. Like my business right now, we send daily 5,000 emails.
Really?
Yeah, we're sending 5,000 emails daily. We send it. We have to do this level of outbound. I want to make content because I know one 30-minute video could be watched for multiple years of watch time. So that's powerful. This is like such a huge opportunity. Plugging my product, we have got AI voice caller. So AI voice caller, you can do outbound calling. Obviously, you have to look at the legality of things in which countries it is allowed. But you can outbound call through AI thousands of people at the same time.
Tell us about your business. Tell us about the current business, in where it's like, what does it do, and how can people benefit from it, and what is your approach to leading it?
Yeah, so right now we are, I'm working on call support, which takes up most of my time. We are building AI, we are building a
Can you say the domain again so people can check it out?
Yeah, callsupport.ai. We are also going through a rebrand a bit because I want a proper name. And I want to buy a proper .com domain just to come across even with much more credibility. But yeah, so what we do is anybody can build AI voice agents on our platform.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be a developer. Anybody in the world out there, they can build any kind of voice agents like AI voice caller, AI receptionist, AI outbound caller, AI inbound caller, anything on our platform with a few clicks. And the biggest use case is all the dentists. They have receptionists. Now there's an AI receptionist which handles 90% of your calls. In a restaurant, all 90% of the calls are handled by AI. These are the biggest use cases. But on the other side, we are automating all of these call centers. So right now, all of these call centers that exist out there, in 2 years will be like 50 to 60% of the work of call centers will be done by AI. And that's why I'm talking to so many call centers here in Germany, everywhere, because they have really high volume of humans who hate doing support, and then you can replace that with AI up to 70%, and the other 30% you pass it on to the humans.
One of the things is I had a business in Bali. It was an AI venture studio where we would build AI agents for celebrities, and I was so fascinated by the idea that in the future there are one-person unicorns. The idea that like all your employees or team members are agents. And it's like maybe even there's an agent who's a unicorn in itself. In a way, it's like where do you, if you would make a prophetic prediction of where the world goes in regards to this trend?
I think there's a very high chance that this happens. I feel like if you're a technical person and you build a product which is a software, and then imagine you're sending 5 to 10,000 emails a day. Then you've got bots which are making content. For example, they're trying to find automatically all the influencers who are the best influencers on TikTok selling a specific product. Imagine you can measure that and you can start sending them messages to advertise your product. And if you're advertising that product and you figure out that these people, what is the cost that you have per 1,000 views and what is the revenue that you have per 1,000 views. So imagine if there's an influencer, you're paying him $10 if you get 1,000 views. But the product that you're selling, you have $15 of profit per 1,000 views. This calculation, people who can do this calculation properly, they can grow like absolutely insane. Because the AI would understand, hey, my cost is $10 per 1,000 views. Then the revenue that I'm creating is 15. So that means there's $5 of profit per 1,000 views. So this AI can contact similar creators which exist out there, automatically send them message, automatically transfer them the money, automatically do the deals, and then this is like insane growth. This is like in B2C we are gonna see this so much. Like you already see, I have a lot of friends who are in e-com and drop shipping and they're making like multi-millions just because they're getting the product from Alibaba, selling in these countries. And they've got like, they don't even manufacture the product, so they've completely outsourced so many components. And now imagine if AI is you're gonna outsource marketing, sales, deal making to AI, and AI is working 24/7, which is doing it, and that's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Like imagine right now people go and put tasks on Upwork and Fiverr. Imagine you tell your AI, like my AI, I tell him he has to do a job, like he has to get me these many views. That AI is going to go on Upwork, automatically go and write what task it has to do. Like it's also going to create tasks, and it's going to hire humans, find the best humans to do this job, and the human is going to do, and this AI is going to send the money. So AI will become the CEO, the product manager, who's hiring humans.
Yeah.
And that's how this AI wins. That's how you get $1 billion billion-dollar one-person company. I do not know when it's going to happen. I think could happen, like I think 2025 or 2026.
Yeah, it's like one of the things we're working on right now, which I find interesting, is that it's. I think the future. I think we need to turn the light on again.
Let me just
not cut it out. This is what happens when you work overtime.
Yeah.
So I think the future is agentic. One of the things I noticed Mark Zuckerberg and Elon like focus heavily on is the creation of AI agent marketplaces. What do you feel is a must-have skill for the next billionaire generation, pretty much, or the next disruptors? In regards to individuals, if you would make a prediction, the next wave of Zuckerbergs and Musk and Larry Holmes and all these kind of guys, what do they look like? What do they have in common? What do they focus on?
So this is the hope for me. I think maybe this answer that I'm giving is coming more from the things that I have to improve. It has to be proper understanding of trends, social dynamics, and fast execution. Like imagine you understand a trend is happening, and then you can really fast capitalize on it. I feel like we also see with meme coins, a trend comes and people immediately become like insanely millionaires within one day because they can understand and they can see in society what is something that is really catching up, you know. So looking at those trends is the biggest thing. Secondly, building AI voice agents or building AI agents. I'm like my whole company is focused on building AI agents for other people. And how many customers we get, we're gonna have a transaction, we're always gonna have a margin. So we are building the infrastructure that people can use in order to build a billion-dollar business. And that's the goal. My goal is building a lot of products where we help people build AI agents in a very fast manner. This voice agents that we are building, these are like one customer that we have, what they do is, this is so crazy, this is such a crazy example. So we've got one customer and you go on their platform, it's a traveling platform, Layla.ai, you go on their platform and you say, I want to get a hotel in Berlin. And there Layla goes, finds the top 5 hotels which are out there, if you want to find a hotel, calls them up, negotiates a price, and then reports back the price to this customer. So it tells this customer, hey, we're gonna go right now, pay us $5, we're gonna call all of these hotels, we're gonna find the best price that you're gonna negotiate all the price on your behalf, and we're gonna give you these 5 prices, and then you determine. And then it automatically then calls again and books it with them. So this is these kind of agents which are working part-time for you.
Interesting. So pretty much one of the things that you feel, why were the kings of the past undefeatable for the peasants who lived in during the time? Part of it was staff. How can you compete with somebody who has an army or somebody who has like a staff of 500 people? Do you think the future it will be democratized to the degree that if you're a visionary with an idea, you can potentially change the world and have like thousands of personal agents who are working on your staff, and you become this one-person state almost?
Yeah. I think people with very high IQ and high fast execution is like understanding which tool to use. Like tools, man. Like imagine like sending thousands of calls per day. Imagine if your business is doing, if you're doing 500 outbound calls a day using AI, and you're sending like 5,000 emails every day, and then on the other side you're making excellent content, AI which is negotiating with influencers, and then
Interesting.
finding the cost and revenue per 1,000 views and figuring that out. Or maybe you can make AI content. Like my last 2 videos were completely AI generated. I did nothing. I cloned my voice and I cloned my actions, and those videos are being created. My editors edit them a bit, and then we want to create insane amount of videos like this to build my personal brand. This is the future. This is like anybody who can be really good at these 3 things.
What are these 3 things again?
So if I have to say these 3 things, like first of all, sales and marketing is the most important thing. So in sales, you have to always be going outbound. Imagine you're sending outbound emails, you're sending outbound LinkedIn messages. This is how you get On the other side, if you have voice agents and you are cold calling is also outbound. That's how you win customers. So AI is already cold calling customers who are your specific customers on your behalf, and people can't even recognize that this is AI or not. So imagine before you needed like every person like people used to call, like when I was like my friends who were running like AI like when they were cold calling, they used to cold call 100 people a day, and they were tired, and it took them 4 hours to do that. Imagine with AI you can do cold calling, which is like within 5 minutes the AI is doing cold calling and negotiating, and it's also learning all the time because it's doing all the objection handling, and then you don't even need employees for that. Imagine people getting like
It becomes a little bit of the debate of to what degree is the driver important in a race. It's just like depends on the engine. If you're a little bit faster, the driver is really important. But if the car you're competing with is like 100 times faster, you can put a fucking monkey in that thing, and it's like it becomes this really disruptive thing.
Exactly. Also coming back to, so these are the two things: outbound calling using AI, and outbound emails and outbound LinkedIn. So these two things. And then thirdly, marketing. If you have really good content out there, content is king. If you're making this content, use it. Like imagine if we are making this video and now we can use this video, edit it, and create 100 clips. Let's say create 1,000 clips, and we can put them on 100 TikTok accounts, 100 Instagram accounts. What's the ROI on that? And imagine AI is doing it. Right now we're also using so many tools in my team to just like directly edit a lot of these things and to create my voice, create my this whole movement. Like my last 2 videos on my channel, they're completely AI. And one of my friends who worked at Coinbase, who like one of the smartest guys, he wrote me and he said, man, because my voice was not as perfect, he's like, how did you improve your English accent?
Oh really? He didn't notice. Huh?
He didn't notice that this was AI. And this is one of the smartest guys, worked at Amazon, Coinbase. He messaged him, man, how did you change your accent? Like you came very professional in this video.
Really?
And I'm like one of the smartest guys I know. And I'm like, wow, like how do you not know, bro? For me it was obvious, maybe because it's like, but it's like these videos are becoming so good.
Interesting. Our company focuses also on the things that don't change. Even though we are building a marketplace for ages as well, where you can converse with the great leaders of the past and present. What do you, if you would give a master class on one particular subject that would be still relevant for decades to come, what subject would you teach, and what would the first topic be?
Okay, so I have to give a master class on something which would exist.
Because tools change, for instance, you know, it's like in 5 years, maybe we have the next industrial revolution through the agents or spatial technologies. What if if you would have to create a masterclass that is even relevant in 25 years from now? What will you teach?
It has to be human psychology or sales. Yeah, because I feel like that is you'd always need to sell something, and understanding humans, it's always going to be beneficial. You can negotiate, you can sell them products, it's going to be going very, very AI, but it's also going to, I think there's also going to be a push towards, because this AI is going to go absolutely insane, I'm not going to lie, and that's going to lead to every action is equal and opposite reaction, and I feel like it's going to go more human also, like it's going to go more human than what we have right now. And that's
interesting.
It's absolutely
the future of AI is more human than current human.
Yeah, I feel it because it's about to go insane. Because I see like all of the content that you're gonna have, it's gonna be AI. Every content, okay? All the codes are gonna become AI. Yeah. So it's like there's gonna.
You think that?
Yeah.
I think I don't.
Like
one of the things I notice is I don't check LinkedIn content anymore, and the reason is because everybody's using AI.
Yeah.
It's awful. And it's for me, it's when I read an old book, I can hear the voice of the person who wrote it. There's soul in it.
You can hear the voice of ChatGPT in every LinkedIn.
You can see it.
You can hear the ChatGPT is.
And I was experimenting with it too, but I had a post I did like yesterday, and it came from my heart, and it meant so much more than any code email I could ever write in a way. And I feel like sometimes maybe the future is more ancient than we think. What do you believe?
100%. It has to go to human, because I feel the next 3-4 years it's gonna go so AI. It's gonna go so insanely AI that people would have no option but to revert back. They'd be like, man, I want more human.
Yeah.
And I never believe like it's gonna go more personal. It has to go more personal, because this is like all the TikTok content, all of these Instagram reel video content. It's all gonna be AI. Calling is gonna be insanely AI. Like even right now, like some of these calls are so great. Like I feel like we're already 80% there when it comes to persuasion talking. Right now with my tool, when the AI is calling, it's making the perfect pauses, and you can even have background noise, which is office. Like we have a feature where people can have like background noise, which is like office, as if
really?
people are talking at the back, and then you could hear like the keyboard cluck cluck. So it's like it's like you literally.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because like persuasion is one of the topics. Pretty much our university is also about like teaching that skill, and the idea of. I'm curious if there will be ethical commissions who are gonna moderate that a little bit, because like if we get too good at pushing our own buttons, we're giving a lot of power to these things in a way. How do you deal with ethics in regards to your AI business?
To ethics,
Yeah.
like with AI, man, it's I try not to like. I think it could get really like these things when they get weaponized, it's gonna be so bad. Like they are gonna get weaponized, and unfortunately, it's gonna be so bad. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe the previous civilizations were more advanced than us, but then they built this AI, which they made this AI, and this AI came and ended up destroying them. And then you go back to zero. Like people say, they have all the knowledge. We already have all the knowledge, so we'll be able to figure it out. But ask normal people, how are you gonna make electricity if all knowledge? If you take ChatGPT, people are gonna become dumb because we'll ask ChatGPT for everything, and then we're gonna forget everything. We're gonna lose all the memory because we don't need to remember anything. And when we don't need to remember anything, nobody would know how to make electricity. Nobody would know how to make an iPhone, like a mobile phone. So that's why we're gonna go back to. Nobody is gonna remember how to make buildings or houses. So we're gonna go back to like if something happens where we like civilization changing thing happens, and we all revert back. If I think I would be able to make electricity, but actually no, I don't think I would not be able to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something yesterday happened. I was at a university writing, and through Chieftains, I'm connected to a lot of world leaders right now, and also to my podcast. I'm more open to geopolitics than I usually am. So I'm like hearing a lot about war and the dangers of it's like it's
We
everywhere.
have to get it. Like this is also something that we discuss off. It's like political stuff has become so important for us, which I always thought I'd never have to think about it. But now you realize, hey, if we are not talking about it, then these other crazy people are gonna drive us to a World War III, a nuclear war, an end to this civilization, end to this world.
I was thinking about that, and there was a satellite problem in the university. I didn't have access to my phone anymore, and it was interesting. For the first time, my first reaction was looking to the sky. I was worried. Like, did something happen? It's like because everybody in the building didn't have their access to their phone anymore. It was, I guess, it's very strange. And I realized I have no amount. Like, how can I pay stuff? I can't call anybody. And suddenly, this was the first time. Like, who are you when all your tools are being taken away from you? So there's also this part where I'm trying to assemble skills that are unstealable to some degree.
Like remembering somebody's phone number, we don't even remember that. Like I don't even know how to call.
I know my own phone number, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, Jesus Christ. Leadership. When you think of leadership in regards to the current crisis, what feelings come up?
Like the political crisis.
Yeah. Would you agree that we have a leadership crisis in the world right now?
It's absolutely insane. It's we are heading towards a World War III. It probably feels like this, and people want it. The incentives are very misaligned. If you look at countries like, if you look at who are the lobbies who actually support all of these politicians, and if you look at the biggest companies which are out there, insurance companies and war companies who directly profit from it. They are the biggest lobbyists of these politicians. So politicians also cannot be honest. If they are there, they need money. Where do they get the money from? From these lobbies, and these lobbies are incentivized to have a war, Like the moment US went out of Afghanistan, I was also thinking like, okay, they're out of Afghanistan, but what about all of those businesses who were selling their machines for this war? What are these businesses going to do? They can't have a bad quarter, so they want another war. So they would start. They would want to start another.
Do you
war.
think we're heading towards a nuclear war? Because one of the reasons why I'm asking that is Chieftains is two sides. We have a society where high-level executive, cultural leaders, education leaders, and political leaders come together to talk. But also because I don't know what's going on in the world anymore, and I like to travel and capture stories, and that's the first time where like I am not enough tuned in to know what's happening. So like one of the purposes of this podcast is to ask high-level leaders from different dimensions on what the fuck's going on and their gut feeling. What does your gut feeling tell you about what's to happen?
We're gonna have a nuclear war. It's gonna happen, and the people who think they're on the good side are the ones who are gonna start it.
The people who think they're on a good start.
The people who lecture and who think they're morally superior, they're the ones who are gonna do it. It's always my problem is more with the people who consider themselves morally superior, because they are the ones who seem to be the most blinded, and they don't feel guilty while doing those actions, and that is unfortunately the problem. These people who are always lecturing you, people who consider themselves morally superior, they are the ones who want wars, who are the ones the first to call names, and they always do it under the guise of protection, democracy. They always have a proper word for it.
Listen to a podcast from Dan Carver yesterday. I told you about him, best podcast of all time, Hardcore History. He said he was talking about the military groups in non-developed Africa, how they would use names that would have nothing to do with what they actually stand for in a way. And I find it so interesting how we need to differentiate between what a person says and what they does in a way. What do you think is your take on what's going on right now? In a way, there was an interview that I found very interesting yesterday with Tucker Carlson and the defenseman. Was it the defense minister? I think Minister for Foreign Affairs of Russia in a way. You listened to the interview as well. What did you hear?
I did listen to the interview. I just watched some TikToks, which were like short clips out of it.
Yeah.
Which were mostly the viral and the funny clips. But I just do not know. I do not understand where the world is going. If I'm being honest, I feel like.
Me too.
I feel like some people actually really love war, and they would much rather escalate the situation than actually come and sit on a table like we are having a conversation. They don't want to have a conversation. They don't want to talk to each other. They don't want to resolve it. They're much more going to be in their echo chambers, and they somehow want wars, and that's my biggest problem. It's the people who consider themselves as morally superior. They're the ones who never want to have a conversation, because for them the other person is kind of animalistic, or they at least, that's how they feel morally superior, because they consider that the other person has to be the worst human in human history. That's why when you consider some other person the worst human in human history, then you're never going to come and converse with them, and that's the biggest problem. That's why it's so hard to even call anybody there, because you want to come on a table and you want to sort it out. You want to sit down. Everybody's fighting for their rights, and like just come on a table. Let's not get into a war. And that's one thing. Berlin could be one of the first cities where it hits actually. So that's.
You think so?
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. There's something terrifying that I heard in an interview. It's like, I believe the purpose why we built this company and this podcast is because we believe that the psychology of all leaders, the entire fate of mankind hangs on it in a way. So
I think podcasts are so important, because imagine if you can get Zelensky and Putin on a podcast and just have a conversation for 4 hours.
Can you imagine just them being in the same room? I feel like one of the reasons why we're
in the same room
it's when Khrushchev and Kennedy had the crisis, the Cuban Missile Crisis. I heard stories that they were secretly in contact with each other the entirety of the time, trying to de-escalate in a way. And I feel sometimes we have been so advanced that we have become very distant from each other, from the consequences. And one of the things I heard in the Tucker Carlson interview that I found interesting was that the Russian foreign minister said that one of the correspondences with America that he had was where they felt that they assumed that if it would go nuclear, it would stay in Europe. In a way, he said, like, that's very dangerous to think, because that's not how a nuclear war works. You know, it's like it's this idea where the idea of such a technologically advanced war is so advanced that maybe it's hard for us humans to imagine it, because we still think like there's going to enemies coming at the door and we have an ability to defend them. But they're just like hellfire is going to rain and we're all going to die.
Yeah, they're just not thinking. They're thinking, hey, I think USA also doesn't care because they feel like it's a European war. So okay.
That's what I mean. It's like maybe some of them feel they're so far away from it that they are safe.
Yeah, that's like, yeah.
And that's like the dangerous belief that I got from that.
That's
Where it's
right.
like interesting where we can get infected with hubris in regards to certain topics that make things very dangerous to us in a way. Where it's like we're not as even though you're on a continent. Actually, we're much closer these days than we would like to be in a way.
Exactly. Go to the side. The fires from China, they all end up like the whole smog and stuff. They end up in US, and I don't know how many days. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like we're so much more connected than people actually realize. And people are not willing to sit down together. That's why I'm so happy that Donald Trump became president, because he's the only one who I see who wants to negotiate. He can go on a table and talk to people. We just need politicians to talk a bit more. And unfortunately, these people who think that they're morally superior, they never come on a table and talk because they think the other person is an animal. They always have a word for others. Like they always have a word, so that's why we don't want to talk to them. Man, that's going to lead to wars. Let's stop calling everybody names. Let's start getting on a table and have a discussion. We just don't want people dying. And Donald Trump, he was the one who went into North Korea. He sat down. Amazing. We should celebrate that. That, hey, they're having a conversation. So if they're having a conversation, they can negotiate things so that we do not escalate things. But now nobody wants to have a conversation. But hopefully that changes.
Yeah. People, one of the things the most craziest people that I ever had fights with were people who felt they were heard by me and behaved in an extreme form as a consequence. I think countries behave in the same manner.
What, like the worst? Could you repeat?
The most extreme altercations I had in my life happened when people didn't feel heard in the conversation. They feel I need to make noise in a way. And I still feel that countries behave like individuals as well in a way. It's like, okay, the message wasn't received, so maybe you need to make a louder message in a way.
A louder message.
To get through. In a way.
Yeah, the decisions of those countries are made by a few individuals, and their emotions matter so much.
What do you see when you think of Trump? What do you think? What do you make of that guy?
He's very unpredictable. That's one of the things
That's why really people have lots of conflict. Some people think he's a devil. Other people think he's a messiah. Other people think he's entertainer. What is your take of him?
He's unpredictable. That's why it's very hard to say anything. But he's the best thing that could have happened. If we would have Kamala or other people winning, that would have been a complete Donald Trump is unpredictable, but this other side of Kamala and Biden, that's like evil. That's like bad. Like that's evil. They want wars. They want continuous wars. They have a specific political agenda. They want to enforce a political agenda. Doesn't matter whatever. And they want to do it while feeling morally superior. They want to lecture the world. They want to feel morally superior. They don't want to sit down and negotiate with anyone. And they do it with force. All the things, and they want to call names. They call names to everyone else to feel morally superior, but they end up doing almost everything the same. And that's my problem with these people. They are like proper evil. So it's good that it's like that they are not there. Donald Trump, he's unpredictable, but he's a businessman. He can negotiate. He can talk, and that's the part that I like. That he's gonna come in. He's gonna talk. He's gonna say, "Hey, let's stop wars." And the fact that media really dislikes him makes me like him, because I know the media. Media got us here. All of this corrupt media that we have, it got us here, and they all hate Donald Trump. So I'm like, okay, amazing. I have to listen to this guy, which the whole media is hating. Let me listen to this guy.
Interesting.
This guy's like, I feel like he's gonna sit down, he's gonna negotiate, he's gonna talk. You have to give up in negotiation. Okay, they're gonna give up on something, but it's important. Let's just stop people dying. That's the most important thing. And the only US president who didn't start any wars. Who can say that? Nobody can say that.
Interesting. If you were to record a time like a message to world leaders, what would you tell them? for any chance that listen to this particular segment.
Come on podcast of Daniel. They have to come on your podcast and have a long form conversation. And I think a lot of these questions also that would be asked, they have to maybe create an x.com poll. Like these are the top 50 questions that we want Putin and Zelensky to talk about. Make a vote on who people can vote on it. And then once we have these conversations, come on your podcast, sit down together and have a conversation. Let's have this conversation and let all of us be the judge. Forget about all of the media, what media wants us, what they really think about, what they want us to believe. Like, have to remove media entirely. Like, we just need a podcaster who's going to listen. Questions have to be open source, and they have to come from normal people, and there has to be a voting system, and just put it out there.
I think Napoleon once said, like, build your enemy a golden bridge to retreat upon, in a way. I miss the times where it's okay to be wrong too, where you have an environment where it's okay to change your opinions. When I see both of these parties argue in a way, I feel like we have distorted our means of communication to such a strange degree in a way where I don't feel that they are talking to each other anymore. And one of the things that I learned from studying the greatest psychotherapists of all time is that both parties actually need to have a precondition for exchanging our truth and accepting wherever that leads us in a way. Yeah. It's a leap of faith where it's like, it's dialogue. It's like the mutual exchange of truth in a way. What do you feel we can do as a society to come back to having better forms of communication with each other? Because if we think about this as a human issue, we just need to talk to each other a little bit differently in a way, and we can maybe not all burn next year.
Yeah. I think media does one of the worst things ever. I think we need more. I think we need every president to have a podcast. Like they have to come directly to people. They have to talk to each other. And I feel like the most of the problems that we have are because of the media, because they want to be the arbiters of truth. They are the ones who want to call names. They always want to support one side, and people have to. They want to call themselves the biggest empaths, who have the most amount of empathy, but they have literally no empathy. They just support one side, and they have a very, very strong political agenda, and that's why this world has so many problems. We want people coming directly, and that's why I really support this Elon Musk buying X.com. Bring all of them on this platform, and let's have a discussion. Let's just have the next United Nations on Twitter. Let's have it like this, and world leaders coming together and having a discussion, and all of the people can talk and see. Because now all our futures are combined together. One nuclear war, it impacts any country in the world.
Yeah,
it's not like back in the good old days,
Yeah, and it's very interesting in a way. One of the reasons why we're so passionate about like collecting the wisdom of leaders right now is because I think we've forgotten what our ancestors went through, and I think this is such a whole maybe segue to the last part of the podcast is when we think of your grandfather who was in the war. It's just like war is like not like they had like. Like they eat you.
They eat you, man.
That's something you should be avoided in a way, unless you want to have 50-50 chance of dying it in a way. In the last part, I would like to talk with you a little bit about the future and what you see happening, and also ask you a couple of questions. But what do you feel is your prediction about what's going to happen in the next 36 months with the world? If you would have to make a guess, what does your gut feeling tell you?
Peace. We're going to have peace. Donald Trump is going to negotiate peace, and he's going to bring peace to the world.
Interesting.
It's also my optimist side, which is saying this, but yeah.
Okay. All right.
AI is going to go crazy. That's one. The next 36 months, I don't even want to see where we are in 36 months. The world is like the speed of acceleration is going like exponential. It would be unrecognizable.
This is the first the AI. Ever since I went to AI, I've become much unhappier because it's just like too much new data every single day.
Like you can't even follow the news.
No, it's like you're one of the reasons why we're going heavy on people is because it's.
You are going heavy on people. That's the thing, The more it becomes AI, the more you become human.
No, because I tried like a year to build a platform. Like by the end of that year, there were already better platforms there already. And it's like this is getting so quick. So it's like, what's the one thing that won't change in a way? books. So in the last part, I would like to ask you a couple of questions. I call it Ezekiel questionnaire. I would like to ask you a couple of questions to talk about the future with you. What are 3 books you would recommend to a leader of the present to prepare for the future?
Leader of the, I think I could maybe tell more about entrepreneurship than anybody who's going into the political spectrum, because that's also a bit out of my.
Mine too, by the way.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm very much ignorant in all those discussions here.
And one thing that I have to say, I used to recommend different books to people all the time, all my life, and now I realize that books are also a form of distraction. And I would not like, if you have I would say if you have some level of problem, then you should go and try to find a solution for that problem and not just sit down and read books. This is my perspective now, and I used to read a lot of books.
Hold on that thought. Let's have a quick commercial break. Turn the lights back on and
Turn
back on. Okay, back at it.
Let's go.
Back at it, man. Dear Joe Rogan, how do you have all these hour-long interviews without going to the toilet? So,
We have to ask him.
yeah, maybe they don't drink 10 coffees like us. So in the last part, I want to talk with you a little bit about the future. And one of the questions I would have for you is, if you would create the perfect entrepreneur, which is in your field of expertise, how would you make them? What would be the first ingredient you would add to them from your point of view?
Risk-taking and adaptability.
Risk-taking and adaptability.
Because it's also, the definition keeps on changing, and business is so competitive, especially in this AI world. You have to keep on changing the business forever. Because right now you also see a lot of software business, a lot of these businesses are gonna face humongous challenges, because new entrants are gonna come and they'll be able to do 10x more with 10x less resources. And if these big businesses do not adapt, poof, they're gonna be out of the market. I hope that all of them have energy to adapt. That's the thing. Maybe this is the cycle of life. All of these big businessmen who are already in their 50s, 60s, maybe they don't want to adapt. They're already happy. They thought this business is going to run forever. Obviously, it's not going to, but I hope they have the adaptability, because their business is going to get crushed.
Unicorn killer. What is their number one ability you think they have? If you would think about the next person whose idea kill a unicorn.
Could kill a unicorn.
Yeah.
We already saw with ChatGPT, it came in and it broke, like, so many businesses went from multi-billion-dollar to completely crashing.
Really?
So many, even Stack Overflow. So as a programmer, we all used to go to Stack Overflow, which is one of the most famous websites ever for programmers. Every programmer knows about it. Right now, their graph is going like this, of monthly active users, like this. I never go to Stack Overflow. If I used to go 10 times in a day, now I go 1 time a month. That's the difference. And there are other student, like all of the kids I talk to, they use ChatGPT to answer all their question and answers. And any company which was in this space previously, all of them are dead. So
survival. It's crazy. It's crazy, right? And it's also, I love this segment. Like, now that we are like more talking about the future for the last part, think about your grandfather, like how survival was not just a given. I think like our current generation is super soft because we had this bubble.
Such a good life.
They don't know. Many of them don't know famine. And I'm not talking more about the Western people. Many of them don't know war, and many of them also don't know how, like, what happens at the bottom anymore.
Man, going into the supermarket, sometimes I'm just going into the supermarket and I'm just happy. People say, do you go to therapists? And I'm like, hey, gym and supermarket. Supermarket, you go in there, I'm just looking at all of those things, and somehow I literally go to supermarkets and a half an hour I'm just walking around inside the supermarket.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this looks so good. I'm sure all hundreds of my ancestors, thousands of them, they would have begged to just be in a supermarket like this where they could buy anything, man. Like, imagine.
If our ancestors left us or would have sent us an advisory letter, what do you think it would say?
If they would say reproduce and don't die. That's it. Like, it has to be reproduction for sure.
It has to be, right?
It has to be reproduction, and also it's also, I heard this thing and I do not feel if it is true or not. The more you think that things change, the less actually the things are changing. Sometimes we feel like the whole world is changing in its entirety, but it doesn't change at all. I read that, and that kind of changed my perspective. Like, even though we see a lot of these things changing, there's gonna come a time where humans are gonna go back to being like primitives. Like, you know how we discussed previously in the podcast, like we could go back to something like this.
Yeah, Albert Einstein once said, I don't know what the weapons will be of the Third World War, but of the fourth one, it will be sticking stones again. It's like, think about that. And it's, this month has, ever since this escalation with the proxy war of America and Russia, what really changed here was seeing this new weapon system the Russian fired. Have you seen that video?
No.
It's like where I'm not sure if it's an ICBM, like an intercontinental missile, but something below that. And it looked like God was punching through the sky, and it was like my entire organism was overwhelmed. I can't fight that. And it was so strange. It made me appreciate
life,
weird things. The cafeteria lady I don't like. I'm like, she like, I don't want her to be gone. Or like my friend who makes he makes a good goulash. Or like my basketball court where I don't want all these things to perish. And I think sometimes it takes a little crisis like that to be a little bit more grateful in a way.
Yeah. Man, these weapons I don't even, like, I was building some technology with drones where we were like 12 years ago, almost 12 years ago, I was working on drones, and we were mounting different lasers on drones so that we could localize them properly. And that was like 11 years ago. And those drones were like, you could buy these drones for like $300-400, and you can put a lot of heavy weight on them, and they could go anywhere. Like, you could navigate them indoors, you could navigate them outside, with extreme amount of centimeter level of accuracy. And now I'm out of this drone technology for like decades now, and I just want to understand, where is that technology right now? And I don't even want to know where it is.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want to, I never want to even think about like where it is right now, because 11 years ago, me as an intern working in one of the biggest research institutions in Germany, I saw some crazy technology, and I'm just thinking, what actually exists out there now?
I saw a video of there was like drone fireworks in China. It was like 1,000 drones forming a dragon in the sky. I'm like, it's getting pretty dystopian these days, and I feel like we need to get as wise as we become sophisticated, like technologically advanced. Sometimes
there's some also videos coming out from these wars where the drone with the camera is going and actually.
These videos are fucking crazy, man.
Bro, God bless. Don't want to go on a war. Don't want to.
I got a drone for travel and stuff, and it's so loud. It's like I can't even imagine one of those days. Even like back then, they had like this tracking modus. It was the DJI-2. And I remember when I was flying this, like it could track a person easily. And I'm like, I have this. What do they have?
What do they have? Ooh.
What gives you a hope for the future? Why do you bet on us? I feel like we are going back to a brother and the people who never give up on believing in us. What gives you faith to not give up on our species?
It's very honest. I could give you a very complicated answer about it. I don't think too much about it. If I'm being honest, I don't think too deeply about future, and that keeps me at peace. I'm not gonna lie. The more I think about the future, the more stressed I get. So I decided, okay, let's not think about it. Let's live the moment. Let's go with it, and not worry too much. I get anxious when I think about the future, so I just don't even think about it. I even think about, but one thing I strongly believe: technology solves most of our problems, and it causes also a lot of problems. Like we talked about drones, but technology is gonna solve. Like, imagine if you can make a house super cheap, if you can give people food for free. But right now, if people have food, if they have clean water, if they have a house, that's what they need. So the basics, the technology, the price of them is going to decrease so much, and we need more and more technology in these spaces. Like iPhone. This iPhone is like for a smartphone for $200-300 you can get a smartphone, which is excellent. You can communicate with.
Think about that. That's I think one of the greatest things that I hope podcasts and educational content can provide, is that people, instead of aiming at each other, look up again and see that like there's great adventures waiting for us, and that we have a whole cosmos full of resources, and we don't need to have these little tribal wars with each other, but actually like maybe bind over like a common adventure, you know?
Yeah, exactly. We have library bigger than Library of Alexandria in our pocket. People wanted to be in Library of Alexandria, the biggest knowledge, and now you have everything in your pocket.
It's funny that you're asking. It's like this is one of our big dreams is to build an Alexandrian library where you can talk with the great wisdom keepers of the past. If you would resurrect your board of advisors from historic figures, who would you pick?
I think I would go here more like to become a board of advisor for my startup. Oh, that would be very hard, but I like for sure it has to be Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs?
Yeah, for sure.
What would you ask him?
I would really ask him about the vision. I'd also want to know exactly if you're thinking big enough, if you're thinking right enough, how to add more style and design to our products. But he's like he's the one. Like I think Apple is the only company in the world who's successful at hardware and software at the same time. Like excellent, they're 10 out of 10 in both of these things, and you never get that. And when you use any of the Apple products, nothing comes close. It's so fascinating. It's like you cannot use a normal laptop. Usually you would think, hey man, these other guys can just copy your product and it's gonna be the same. But every time I'm on a different laptop, I am just annoyed. If I'm on an Android device, I'm annoyed. It's like you always think, why don't they just copy Apple? But even copying is not easy.
Yeah. Steve Jobs had a particular leadership style. Had a bit of a reputation.
No.
How is yours? Now you find yourself in the position that you have team members and you have an audience of thousands, even millions of people worldwide, which is a kind of a thing to think about, you know? It's like millions of people have listened to you. What is your leadership style?
I would say the only thing I focus on is speed. That's the only thing. If I like at any point in my business, just add insane amount of speed. That's it. That's one thing. And anybody who works with me, they also recognize only speed. And I keep on putting so much pressure on the team, which I also understand. And sometimes they break, but I also realize in my life, people who push the most amount of pressure, work pressure, actually those at that point maybe I didn't like it, but down the line I was like, hey, that was a good one. I really pushed the limits they really pushed my limits, and that's what I respected about them. I always respected. I was annoyed by them, but I respected that, and I do the same. I like honestly so many times I think my team is really annoyed by me, like super annoyed. But I understand that you have to push them. You always have to ask the question, why is the speed this speed? And this is also Peter Thiel, I think from his book, take a 6 months plan and try to do it really far. That 5-year plan converted into a 6 months plan, that's the thing. Yeah. That's the thought process. And it feels like...
He's famous for asking, can we get this done by today?
By today.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's... And this is also one of those principles. I also try to instill it. I don't know good or bad, but I'm sure my team members are really annoyed. Today's Sunday, all of them are working.
For those who, I was in his room, he had like 3 calls with engineers holding them accountable in a way.
But you gotta incentivize people, and people, you have to work like, because the competition is working. Like you always say competition is working, and people have to go back from, like if you have a big enough problem that you're trying to solve and you can show a big vision, people wanna work. Like Saturday, Sundays, they do not care. If they know that there's a good end goal and they have the strong incentive there, people want to work. And I like it. Saturday, Sunday gets really boring without work.
Steve Jobs would get resurrected. When you think of a leader you would like to punch in the face.
Punch in the face!
What would you think of?
Oh, punch in the face. That would be very hard.
Can be metaphorically speaking.
Metaphorically, even metaphorically. I feel like it's so much better if people... I think my problem is we've got leaders. One thing I realized in life is everybody thinks they're a hero. You know when they say somebody's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter, and I so strongly believe in it. You might think somebody's evil, but they are really working for their own people. They think they're a hero. and you also. But the society doesn't want us to think like this. The society always wants us to think black and white. Hey, this person, he is evil. This was evil. This was evil, and we are good. We are good. We are good. The problem is people who think they're good, good, good all the time. They're the ones who end up doing all the evil.
I hear that. That was so interesting. I once read FBI reports of commonalities of, I think it was kidnappers, but not kidnappers in a professional sense, but more like psychotic kidnappers. And their members all had in common that they felt that they had like a prophetic role to play.
Oh, kidnappers.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was like these guys were like keeping people in banks, like bang. It was so interesting to say like, the greater you think you are, the closer you are probably to insanity, you know. And it's like I find it very interesting. Like if you are be not so sure of your own judgment of yourself and other people is maybe not the worst advice.
Exactly, and I remember also you mentioned this How to Win Friends and Influence paper. He mentions it in the first, exactly in the first chapter. He mentions that they went and they interviewed all the prisoners, and all of them, the prisoners would even kill people. All of them thought they were doing it for the good. They thought they were protecting their people, they're protecting their society, and that's the thing. I feel like more people have to understand each other than actually they. So I do not want to metaphorically punch somebody.
If you would share, if we would build a package for a future leader and you would put in one tool, one tactic, and one teacher they should study, what would you pick?
One tool, one tactic, and what's the third one?
One teacher. Teacher can be study this particular mentor, for instance.
I feel like the most important skill, and this is more current, negotiate. How many people can actually come on the table and actually talk? My problem is people when they don't talk to each other. And that's why, also mentioning Donald Trump, the thing I like about this guy is that he comes and he talks. He talks, he can have a conversation. And now, because we are all one, because one vote would have consequence on every person, this is the only skill set that they need. They need to have negotiation. Second of all, they need to be very skilled. They need to be very skilled. They need to have it's good if they're not career politicians. Back in the Roman Empire,
right?
Yeah.
There's one of my favorite quotes is don't enter the council chamber until you're asked to do so. There's like the idea of like, if you want to be, my father said this once to me. He said like, if you say that, if you want to be a leader, then you're probably the least person qualified to lead.
To be the lead.
And I was like, really? that was so interesting. It's like the idea that we should elect the best of us, and not maybe take the best propagandists who are set them out for 20 years to be in a position like that. So I found that so interesting. Yeah. Let's come to the end of the interview. I want to be respectful of your time. One of my favorite questions of all time is, if this podcast were the only piece of content that would survive for future generations to come, almost like a Dead Sea Scroll, what would be a message you would leave for your descendants, so to say?
I don't even think I've thought that deeply ever in my life. I always thought we are very perishable and never thought about messages which would be resonated in men. Obviously, I'm sure everybody has to reproduce. That's one thing that I want the message to be, but an answer which is better than that if it is not reproduction.
What will you tell them?
Like I have to tell them something which is specific to lead life, or
no, you can tell them whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay, I would just, this is something that I also preach to myself, so I'd also preach it. Let's just not overthink anything and speed. Every time I've overthought something, it's like it was much better to just do that thing. I feel like when I was also working and I was the least productive, it was because I thought about the problem more than the time it would have taken to actually solve the problem. Like everything around it, thought too much about it, but the problem actually to sort it out was substantially, could have done it in 1/10 of the time.
So you would tell them to survive and live and to be more oriented on finding an actual solution than obsessing about the problem?
Yeah, not way too much. I've already gotten white hair now. I realize, oh, maybe I should stop worrying about anything. Maybe it's I'm not getting any sun inside me.
Big part of what we're doing is also to eternalize current leaders, and might be weird to you, but somebody who's affecting the lives of millions of people is fits that category from my point of view. If your agentic engine would create an agent of yourself at your funeral,
Oh,
what would be a message you would leave behind for those who knew you?
the message. I would like them just to know me as. I think I'm a very high energetic person, and I want them to know me as a very high energetic person who doesn't, and a very non-complicated person. Those are the two things I want to know. I think I've also made a lot of mistakes, but that's how I want them to know.
Hologram is over, meeting your creator. What do you hope he will say to you in regards to how you lived your life?
God. Ooh, I think it all comes back to people. I think it all comes back to people, how people are to each other. When you look at all of the religions, every religion thinks that they are correct. That's one of the things that I learned. This is something that you acquire when you talk to and converse with people from. Everybody thinks they're right, and that's the thing. I think that's why how you treat others who are opposite to you, who do not have the same alignment. I think that's the biggest challenge, and that's what you're going to be judged on.
You're going to be judged on how you're going to treat those who have different views than you.
Wow. That's the hardest thing.
I've never heard that one before. It was an honor to go on this conversational adventure with you today. It was a bit rocky, as all first drafts are. Like Hemingway said, the first draft of everything is shit. Tell us where we can find you, and also how we can support you on your leadership journey.
Exactly. I think everybody can find me on Twitter, Instagram, but mostly Twitter. It's with Yar, Yar Malik, Malik here. That's my URL. And yeah, I'll be posting a lot of content also on my YouTube. So if you go to one account, you're going to be connected to almost all of them because I've got links properly there. And yeah, at the end of the day, if there are people who are watching who are in call center space or who are interested in a tool which is about AI voice, who want to build voice agents, reach out to me. We can build a solution which is gonna reduce 50% of your overhead, and that's where most of my brain cells are these days, going towards building this product out and making it as big as possible, and that's what I'd hope for.
Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
It was a pleasure.
It was my honor. For everybody who listens, this was the first episode of Chieftains. I'm Daniel Karim, founder and CEO of Chieftain. You can find us at chieftain36.com, and we hope to bring you more inspiring leaders of the present and hope to make a positive impact on your journey. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next episode.
Let's go.